So thank you for joining us this Saturday morning. Anchor of Hope is the name of this gathering for anyone interested in improving all of our well being by incorporating the message of God's love and power. We gather every second and fourth Saturdays of the month, and the recording of the seminar can be accessed again on our YouTube channel named Oak Hill Foundation Anchor of Hope, or you can find the seminars on our website at oakhillfoundation.org. And you can consider subscribing to our website, our newsletter, and follow us on Instagram and Facebook to keep updated on all the seminars. And through these meetings, we hope to build a community where we can witness one another experience unshakable hope and unprecedented healing that comes from learning about Jesus. Anchor of Hope is sponsored by Oak Hill Foundation, a nonprofit organization committed to raising awareness regarding mental health in order to reduce stigma and the prevalence of severe mental suffering. And the goal of OHF is to deepen understanding about integration of Christian faith and comprehensive healthcare resources. Until today, since January, we covered topics such as isolation, uncertainty, distrust, despair, and unworthiness. Great topics. If you haven't heard these yet, go back to the YouTube channel or our website and check them out. And for today, we will review a two-part seminar on the topic of unmotivatedness. We made up that word, I think. Dr. Alyssa Lucas is speaking again today, presenting the initial part of today's topic, and then Dr. Meejin Park will share the spiritual aspects of unmotivatedness. So before we begin, shall I ask God to bless us today? Join me in prayer. Dear God, thank you so much for Anchor of Hope. These are very pertinent topics in all of our lives. For those who are severely struggling, and for those who are just going through mundane day-to-day life. Today, we will review the issue about being unmotivated. This applies to young children all the way to those who are older, and it could be a stumbling block for so many. So I pray that during this seminar, there will be an enlightenment and also a conviction that there is hope regarding this area and how we can really fight through by your help, by your grace. Thank you, Jesus, for being the answer to our lives. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. So I'm going to invite Dr. Alyssa Lucas. She is a clinical psychologist, and we reviewed her bio last week, so you have to listen to that one to get to know her more. So here is Dr. Lucas.
Thank you. And um, everybody always can see Bailey in the background, so she might pop her head in. So sorry about that. But so I'm going to share my screen here. And bear with me, I am really new at this technology thing. So today I wanted to obviously talk about unmotivatedness. And I actually really like that word. And if we made it up, I think it's great. Um, and I think this is such an important topic because we, as a community, as a country, have gone through some of the most difficult times over the last year and a couple months. Um, and I don't know about you guys, but the first few months of the pandemic, when we were at home, not seeing our families, and not near the ones that we love, um, I started to really lose motivation. It was really tough to get motivated. The most motivated I was to sit on my couch and binge watch Netflix and probably order Postmates or something. Like that's basically the motivation that I had. It was hard to work. It was hard to um, to do the things that we were, used to doing. It just was really challenging. And so I think this is such an important topic because at one point or another, every single one of us has felt unmotivated. And so I'm really appreciative that I was asked to speak today on this topic. And um, so the first thing I wanted to talk about is, what does unmotivated even mean? Um, and just, in a nutshell, not having interest or enthusiasm for something, especially work or study, um, and uninterested, indifferent, unconcerned, unmoved, unresponsive, without a reason or motive. Like sometimes these small little tasks can just feel so daunting, and can really sort of make us feel a little bit stuck. And so again, I think this is really important for every single person because every one of us has felt this at some point. So I just wanted to speak a little bit about mental health and feeling unmotivated. So a lot of mental health diagnoses um, have, result in feeling unmotivated. Depression, kind of, if we're in a depressive state and we just don't have the energy, we don't have the drive, we just feel so heavy, or even anxiety if we have ruminating thoughts, or things are going over in our head again and again and again. It's like we're almost kind of stunted, and it's hard to move forward or move anywhere for that matter. And also, I think part of feeling unmotivated is a natural day-to-day thing that happens. Some days, i I mean, I'm sure everybody can relate, but some days it's like, whoa, I have all the motivation in the world. I cleaned my kitchen. I did all the work that, I had to do for the whole week, or, got all my bills paid today, whatever it might be. Some days we just really feel that. And then some days feel a lot heavier and a lot more difficult. So I think it's definitely just, it can be a natural day to day concern as well. And I think an important part of this is when to seek professional help. Um, and definitely thinking about the fact, is this feeling of being unmotivated or lack of motivation, is it affecting my daily life? And if so, then I think I definitely encourage, anyone in this room, us psychologists and doctors included, to seek professional help when um, the feeling of being unmotivated is starting to affect our daily life, especially our work, our studies, our families. That can definitely be really, really important. And then also, it's interesting because I was sharing, the people that were here last time got to meet my mom. My mom was on there. I talked a little bit about her last time, but she asked me this morning because I was telling her about this talk today, and she said, well, is feeling unmotivated always a bad thing? And I was like, well, I guess not, because sometimes we get so down on ourselves of like, oh, I'm just not motivated to do that today. And sometimes that's okay. We're allowed to like take a break and slow down a little bit, because sometimes we can get caught up in the craziness of life, and we're go, go, go. And if we're not go, 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 it's like, oh, I didn't do anything today. So I think at some level, if there's a time for us to slow down, that can also be important too. So I thought that was an interesting question that she asked me this morning. So I wanted to share that with the group as well. All right. So what is underlying my lack of motivation? First of all, it could be a ton of different things. There's so many different things that contribute to feeling unmotivated, and a few of the ones that came to my mind: fear of failure, fear of success, which sounds kind of funny, but we'll get there. We'll get to that. And then the fight, flight, or freeze. And sometimes that feeling of being unmotivated is like, we're frozen. We don't know how to move one direction or the other. We just don't know where to go. So we'll get into each of these. So the first one, fear of failure. And underlying this is basically a fear of making mistakes. None of us like to make mistakes. None of us like to fail. And yes, failing is a natural part of human existence. We have difficulties all the time, and I definitely think this cycle is something that can be really problematic, and something that we want to address. Um, and so the first piece is um, just this unworthiness, this fear of, if we fail, are we worthy? And it's interesting because last week or 2 weeks ago, the discussion, the topic was unworthiness. And this keeps coming up in this, and as I was putting this presentation together, and I was like, wow, they are really actually very connected. And then if we're feeling unworthy, then it leads to underachievement, and we're not achieving the goals or the things that we want to be doing. And then we tend to disengage. If I'm not doing this X, Y, and Z well, you know what, I'm not even going to try. I'm going to fail at it anyway, so I'm just going to disengage from the situation. Um, and then we avoid it, which creates self-sabotage, defensiveness, pessimism, and helplessness. And then we start to procrastinate, we avoid. And if I don't do it at all, I won't fail. And then if we're not doing anything, then it goes back to this feeling of unworthiness. And we get stuck in this nasty cycle of just feeling stuck and not sure where to go. And I wrote this little thing down at the bottom: interesting lies we tell ourselves, because I think at each of these little points, we create this story of, I I'm not good enough to do that, or I don't know how to do that. I'm not going to do it because I won't succeed at it anyways. And so I think there's oftentimes little itty bitty lies that we tell ourselves to um to avoid the possibility of failure, and um which in turn actually keeps us from that excitement of success, of growth. And um and if we aren't putting ourselves out there, we never know what might happen. And so that it definitely can be a vicious cycle that we definitely want to figure out how to break. And the next part of this is the fear of success, which sounds a little strange. However, it's very meaningful. And so the fear of success is more so the fear of doing things right. Um, and it's interesting because we're always pushed to succeed, do this, do that, get really be successful at things, at our job, at school. What do we want to achieve? And I think sometimes we have this fear of, if we do, you know even though society's telling us we want to be successful, sometimes we're not met with the the grace um, and the things that we want from other people. Sometimes it might create jealousy, or isolate us a little bit if we are successful. Sometimes, even maybe our friends sometimes aren't exactly. Um, they might be proud of us, and sometimes we have this fear of, like, oh, are they going to push me away because they're jealous or something like that. And then the next one is not being appreciated, which also, again, keeps us from, or keeps this fear of success going. And what I mean by that is, if we're typically successful and and people around us are used to us succeeding and really pushing through, achieving our goals, sometimes they forget that it's really a lot of work and dedication. And so we might feel a little bit underappreciated or always expected to succeed, which leads into the next point of not being able to maintain the level of achievement. Wow, that's tough. It's often, if we are viewed as very successful people sometimes and are always kind of running up here, sometimes that's exhausting. And if we aren't successful all the time, it can feel really daunting, and puts a lot of pressure on us. So sometimes that, again, that fear of having to be successful all the time creates that anxiety, in us, and increased responsibility. So this is something that I can definitely connect with, and my guess is, some of the fantastic people on this talk today as well, especially going through, and I'm pretty much an open book. I share this with people often, of going through grad school. It was tough, and as I was going through, I found myself kind of avoiding my dissertation and avoiding things that were going to be moving me forward. And I thought to myself, like, what is happening here? Why am I so unmotivated to finish my dissertation? Because this, when I'm done with it, I'm done with school. Like, I should have been so excited. I'm not shitting on myself. So I could have been so excited. I tell that to my clients all the time. They use the should word, and I address that. But my point is, um, I kept saying to myself, what is happening? And I realized, oh my goodness, I might be a little bit afraid of being out on my own, of being successful, of being a licensed psychologist that isn't working under somebody else's license anymore. And I'm responsible for my clients, for my practice. And as scary as that was, taking that step and pushing through, and overcoming that feeling of being unmotivated, now, in hindsight, I can see it was definitely worth it. So, but that's definitely a thing that can be really challenging. And sometimes we end up self-sabotaging. And if we do achieve success, those of us that are fearful of success might be quick to mess it up. And this is where it comes back to that feeling of possibly be feeling unworthy of, ooh, do I deserve this happiness? Do I deserve this success? And sometimes we think no, which is maybe leading us to self-sabotage, and then again stunting us to kind of just sit in this place of like not feeling motivated and just being kind of stuck. And then the freeze. And I oftentimes feel like when we freeze and we're just not, we feel like we can't go anywhere. This might be some sort of trauma response. And by that, I don't necessarily mean like massive trauma that was something, this really horrible event that might have happened to us. It could be these little teeny tiny traumas that might, create this, cognitive distortion of, ooh, I don't know, I don't know where to go with this. Um, and I don't know how to deal with it. So I'm just not going to do anything. I'm going to freeze, you know. And we often think of like the fight or flight, but there definitely is that freeze response where we get kind of stuck and don't know where to go. And so I definitely think that can lead to feeling unmotivated as well. And on the flip side, there is motivation. And finding that motivation is so important, and it's an important part of life. And we do have this cycle of days where we're unmotivated and then motivated the next day. So I think it's important to look at both sides. um, the reason why one has for acting or behaving a particular way, um, uh, just basically the desire or willingness of someone to do something, and enthusiasm, drive, ambition, initiative, determination. Like, those are things that we want, and it is hard to get there, and it is possible. And so I just wanted to also kind of really quickly just point out, help is on the way. So these are a few little things that we can do daily, to increase our motivation. And one of my favorites is this 1, 2, 3 act. And So if we are able to tell ourselves, give ourselves 1, 2, 3, do it, and not think about it, we are more likely to be successful. So I often talk about this when I want to snooze my alarm in the morning. And if you push that snooze once, you're more likely to push it 3, 4, 5, I don't know, maybe 6 times. And if our alarm goes off the first time and you say 1, 2, 3, and you jump out of bed, you are more likely to stay out of bed. So that's the whole idea behind that. And anyone who knows me knows I love to go to spin class. I shared this last time as well. And one thing that the instructor that taught, I actually went this morning, and the instructor said, she was talking about motivation. I'm like, whoa, okay, I'm just about to do a talk on this. So let's hear what you got to say. And she said, don't think about it, just do it, turn up the gear. And I was like, okay. And I just did it. And guess what? My legs followed, and I was able to do that. So I love that 1, 2, 3, go. And creating healthy habits, so important, such an important part of motivation. If we are able to create the healthy habits such as exercise, creating a schedule for work, study, whatever that might be, it can really increase our motivation. And yes, it takes time. um, we don't just develop a habit overnight. So it takes practice, time and practice. And then the self-awareness piece is so important. If we, are able to recognize what is keeping us from accomplishing our goals, or what is actually making us feel unmotivated, if we can really find what's underlying, we can do something about it. And so the self-awareness piece is huge. And so I encourage you guys to try some of these things. And anyone here that is seeing a therapist through Oak Health or anywhere else, definitely talk with your therapist about it, because it's something that we love to help people and help ourselves as well. Just find that level of motivation, because we all deserve to achieve our goals, and to have success, and to feel successful, and to feel good about ourselves. So that was it for my portion. And I just wanted to say thank you guys for tuning in.
Thank you so much.
Of
Thank
course.
you, Dr. Alyssa. I learned so much. I feel like a tad bit motivated and also less guilty for the moments that I wasn't motivated to keep on going. I don't think I've ever heard of the section that you talked about, fear of success. That was very, very interesting. So I'm going to have to review that again. So thank you so much. Now we'll have Dr. Meejan. So stay tuned for Dr. Meejan to come and talk about the spiritual aspects about this issue or this topic. And please remember, type in your question anytime. I'll be collecting them. Type it directly to me, Oak Hill Foundation, and we will go into Q&A right after Dr. Meejan. Thank you, Dr. Meejan.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much, Dr. Lucas. That was really uh, the inspirational, but at the same time, it's very, very informative to understand what's the things behind our unmotivatedness. So thank you so much. For the spiritual part, I wanted it to open up with Bible verses first, and then maybe we can start from there. So today's verse that what I wanted to share with you is Psalm chapters 88. If you do have Bible or Bible apps, please open your phone, your iPad, your computer, or real Bible. Just open it and then let's read together. It's kind of short chapter, so why don't we read together? I will read it. Lord, you are the God who saved me. Day and night I cry out to you. May my prayer come before you. Turn your ear to my cry. I am overwhelmed with the troubles, and my life draws near to death. I am counted among those who go down to the pit. I am like one without strength. I am sent apart with the dead, like the slain who lie in the grave, whom you remember no more, who are cut off from your care. You have put me in the lowest pit, in the darkness depth. Your wrath lies heavily on me. You have overwhelmed me with all your waves. You have taken from me my closest friends and have made me repulsive to them. I am confined and cannot escape. My eyes are dim with grief. I call to you, Lord, every day. I spread out my hands to you. Do you show your wonders to the dead? Do their spirits ride over and praise you? Is your love declared in the grave? Your faithfulness in destruction. In destruction. Are your wonders known in the place of darkness, or your righteous deeds in the land of oblivion? But I cry to you for help, Lord. In the morning, my prayer comes before you. Why, Lord, do you reject me and hide your face from me? From my youth, I have suffered and been close to death. I have borne your terrors and am in despair. Your wrath has swept over me. Your terrors have destroyed me. All day long, they surround me like a flood. They have completely engulfed me. You have taken from me friend and neighbor. Darkness is my closest friend. Sometimes, for me, it's kind of weird to see myself alone. So I wanted to see all of you. Oftentimes, we as a believers, we have this misconception that believers will not have difficulties, or believers always have a passionate and compassionate and will do everything for God. But as we read one of the chapter in the Bible talks about the so many different ways, and there's so many people who are actually suffer from their pain, their agony, right? And in darkness too. And sometimes this darkness lasts so long, for so long and good while. We believers can also experience um, this suffering and pain. When we are especially in the moment of a darkness, and that darkness is lasts so long, for long, it's natural that we are not motivated. Like Dr. Elissa shared with us today, a lot of this unmotivatedness, actually behind the unmotivatedness is not uh, depends on your intelligence or your efforts or your skills. It is more of emotional states that we are actually going through some challenges emotionally, or sometimes circumstantially that having some challenges too, like a pandemic is outside of our control, right? The circumstantially is challenges. And sometimes because of that, we can experience challenges and feel motivated, unmotivated. Dr. Lisa also shared that in the beginning, not because she's not intelligent, right? Not because she doesn't have resources to motivate it, but the pandemic itself allow us very limited and many resources to reach out. So we are suddenly feeling unmotivated. But interestingly though, when the circumstances are out there that were happening, but if we have a little bit of hope inside, inwardly, still we can go through some challenges too, right? Yeah, we're going to talk about that a little bit later. One of the stories in the Bible, Job, probably all of you know about him. He's kind of famous guy, right? So whether we believe it or not, everyone knows he's a very popular guy because his story is somewhat related to what we are going through. But interestingly, when you're looking at the book of Job, he actually was angry at God. He was complaining to God so much, right? And that he didn't even have a strength to do anything. He's very unmotivated. The only thing that was left on him is angry at God and complaining to God. But at the end, what God said, that still, that although Job said all the terrible things about God, God said he honored me because that his anger, his complaints toward God. He was talking to God and never turned away from him, that he was talking in his difficulties and suffering and in the moment of unmotivated. He's still staying with God. So the moment when he was praying or the using his anger and the complaints toward God, turning into the prayer, that's the moment we saw Satan was defeated. It wasn't just the complaining, it wasn't just the anger toward God, but it was turning into the prayer. That's the moment Satan was defeated. Oftentimes when we are going through difficult time or painful time and then darkness, as if like what today's verse at the end, darkness is only my friends. Darkness is my closest friend. When we are going through those kind of moments, we don't feel that God is there, but we know, right? At least logically, we know that God is there. Even if we don't feel like there is no God, but still we're holding on to anyway, that God is there. And we can confess that, you know what, God? You are God, I'm not. Everything is in your hands. I'm not motivated. I cannot do anything. Either it is outside circumstances or internal low motivation. I am not God, you are God. You needed to make it the way and go through it. As we saw through the today's chapter, the Psalm, that seems like he was looking at it, this pain and this moment of darkness was seems like is a permanent, is a rather than is a temporary. It was really hard for him to see that there was God. Right? Internally, he was struggling that. Externally, he was struggling that because his friends left. Nothing was there. So there's no motivation for him to can have. So go to make a friends, go to work for it. He has a hard time to see what he can do. So that at the end of it, he say, darkness is my closest friend. But we know that that was a temporary. We know that even at the moment of the darkness, what he was experiencing it, the God was there. How can we know? Let's open the Matthew chapter 27 together. Matthew chapter 27, verse 45. It's just the one verse. From noon until 3 in the afternoon, darkness came over all the land. About 3 in the afternoon, Jesus cried out in a loud voice, Eli, Eli, lema sabachthani, which means, my God, why have you forsaken me? Jesus was experiencing total darkness right there. So when he was taking, right, Jesus went through that cross and went through the darkness so that you and I cannot be in darkness forever anymore. So Jesus abandoned. His friends left. His disciples left. No one was there. Literally, darkness was his only friends. And even his father left. He was totally alone. So he was totally abandoned. So that you and I don't have to be abandoned anymore. Maybe you and I can feel that we are abandoned. Maybe you and I can feel that this darkness is so strong and so painful that I cannot do anything. I'm so unmotivated. But the truth is, that's temporary. Why? Because Jesus did it for us. So when he was taking this sin upon himself on our behalf, Jesus took the darkness completely himself, so that when you and I believe in him, our sins are forgiven. Jesus was truly abandoned. Jesus was truly alone. So you and I can have faith in him that he took it all and he knows. So in the moment of darkness, when you and I are going through, we know Jesus knows. We know that Jesus went through. Jesus understands of our darkness. Jesus can understand our abandonment or feelings of unworthiness, or even the moment of unmotivatedness, or things that we cannot do anything about it. Jesus knows. And he said, I finished. And because of what Jesus did, we know God will never abandon us. No matter what you are done wrong in the past, it doesn't matter. Because what Jesus Christ has done, he took the penalty. It is all fell on him. Sometimes this darkness is happening without knowing why. Why, God? Why do I have to go through this? Why I am not like my friends are motivated, pushing myself to do all these things? Why, Jesus? Why, God? Like today's author in Psalm chapter 88, why you are abandoning me? Why are you turning away from me? Your wrath is on me. We may not know that why we're going through sometimes in this darkness, but we know that there is answer. We know that there's a purpose. Eventually, we will know. When I was going through some dark moments and very unmotivated, I couldn't even get out from my bed. I couldn't even make a food for myself. And I still ask. And when my family were going through the tough time, I didn't know why. I still don't know why some of the things. I still don't know why my brother's, medical incidents never got recovered, that he's still going through the tough time. And all our families are going through a hard time. I really don't know. But I know one thing, that there is a greater purpose and reason that he will allow me to know. That still with the questions, with the even tear and anger and complaint that we may have in our lives, we can take it to God. Isn't that interesting? If this Bible is inspired by God, why would God put this kind of things in this chapter? That this is the horrible things about him, right? So in our human nature, if somebody is talking bad about me, we wanted to omit that. We always want to just talk good things about me. But God put that in it. Why? Because our God is that gracious. His way of doing it, his way of doing work it's grace-based, right? So uh, the core of a Christianity, the one thing that I am uh, uh, so thankful and blessed about in Christianity is our faith is not based on what you do and what you can do. It is based on what Jesus has done for us. If the resurrection is the fact, if the resurrection is the truth, that it itself is giving us greater hope that we may not know and fully experience that today, but we know that hope. Internally, we can hold on to that resurrection, that fact had happened, and that is giving us greater hope in the future, that this darkness and anything that permanently, completely will removed, and we will experience true peace and joy with him. A lot of, in the world, there's so many other religions, right? So many philosophers are out there talking about it. Do this and do that. it will make you feel good. Do this and do that, that you will probably closer to reach a God, right? It's all based on what you must do. Then there's no hope actually. Feeling of unmotivatedness will make us more guilty or guiltier, right? I cannot do God. I want to pray more. I want to read Bible more. I want to serve the community more. I cannot. Then at the end of it, as a Christian, we will feel guiltier. But our God said, no, I'm not here to tell you what you must do. I'm here to tell you what I've been done for you. So that when you and I believe in him, he said, my resurrection power will comes in and begins to change your life. So instead of focusing on what I need to do, the gospel, the good news in Christian beliefs and faith is God will do, and focus on what God has done for us. My brother and sisters, it's very natural that sometimes and many times we feel unmotivated. Like what Dr. Alyssa said, we have to be aware of it. If it is this the last too long, it's too difficult, and it affects many areas, yes, we needed to get help from the professional. We have to be aware where this unmotivatedness comes. But the bottom line, the good news of the gospel, the power of the gospel is that Jesus has done and he finished. So I wanted to encourage all of us, well, including myself, when we are going through in the darkness or the moment of unmotivatedness, let's remember that. Pray. If there's anything, even that, the complaining, I'm not motivated, I cannot do anything. Lord, where are you? To God. Let's go to God. So he can be honored and he will do his work in time. With his grace and his love, he will lift us up. He will rise us up in time. So Jesus knows, and Jesus will do his work.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Mijin, for that great review and encouragement of the hope and the power we have in the resurrection of Jesus, how he finished the work, and how that will be the motivation rather than our own effort and pushing ourselves. So thank you for that, for both Dr. Alyssa and Dr. Mijin. And in the remaining time, we will do our Q&A and just discussion one with one another. And please know that all the speakers are spotlighted, so you don't have to be afraid to send in your questions by typing it to me. My label is Oak Hill Foundation. And for our panelists today, we have Dr. Steve Calleros. He is a child adolescent psychiatrist. And then, you know, Dr. Alyssa and Dr. Mijin are clinical psychologists. So we will be here to answer your questions, and I'll be part of your panel also for Q&A. And why don't we start off with a question that came in, and actually two of them that came in are quite similar back to back. One says, with family members, it's hard not to nag each other when we struggle with unmotivatedness. What are some ways in which we can encourage and help each other rather than getting upset? The second question that's so related to that is, how can you guide a loved one out of unmotivatedness? So these are good questions about if you see someone else so unmotivated and you want to encourage them, what can you do?
Dr. Mijin's talked about this before, where as a loved one, you just I'll put but Dr. Mejan and Dr. Alyssa put it together. Maybe you can kind of investigate what the unmotivatedness is based on, and then maybe you can kind of help guide them out, like to the first step. So it's kind of like 1, 2, 3. Okay, let's go. Let's do it together. What may be getting in the way? Let's do it together. Maybe something like that.
I have a story that might be helpful. He was not my family member, but a very, very close friend long ago who repetitively failed the bar. Was it the bar? Yes, something to, or the LSAT, or one of those things to try to get into law school. Maybe it was LSAT. So it was a little odd because I knew it wasn't an intelligence issue, and I just probed and asked questions rather than pushing him. Come on, study, hurry, you can do it. And come to find out, he started to dig in deeper in his own thoughts and feelings about himself. And he discovered he didn't think he would pass the exam. So, not studying was the outer excuse of not being able to pass, and therefore he can't move further. So, that was a really interesting discussion. And it's a positive ending. He actually finally passed, went to law school, passed the bar, got a job, and even got another job that he wanted all along. So it's been a long journey for him, but you can't keep going further if you don't pass the first test. So the motivation issue is talked about a lot when it comes to examinations and finishing up programs.
Yeah. In my clinical setting, oftentimes parents bring children to me and saying my child are so unmotivated, right? And then please help my child to be motivated. And oftentimes I'm actually sharing with the parents that one thing that what we needed to understand is a motivation is not a skill. If it is a skill to motivate it, it will be easier actually, because we can teach them what to do, how to do. Then what parents' expectation on me that I can motivate them because I will go step 1, 2, 3, 4. Then, oh, boom, they are motivated. But the motivation is not based on the skill exercise, right? But motivation is really feeling based. So our nagging will not gonna help them to feel better. So like what Dr. Alyssa shared today, we kind of needed to understand. I think this is also tied into that what we talked about the last anchor of hope, right? We have to be interested in that person, either as a family members or friends, what made them unmotivated, rather than tell them, please do something about it. Right? Just try to understand. So what's going on? Well, what are you going through? What's going through in your mind, kind of thing. So being more interested in and hearing them, so that like at the end, what Dr. Alyssa shares some of the strategy that maybe we can share those things with our loved one, but from the get-go, you needed to do this, you do that, and they will feel more unworthy, like Dr. Lisa said, right? What is it? Underachieved, and the fear of a failure, fear of success, all tied it into and sabotaging, and now they don't want to do it. So I think the targeting it, identifying and understanding why they are experiencing that will be very important, and help our loved one to be aware of it. That is actually why they feel unmotivated.
I love that. And coming from a place of curiosity and wanting to understand what our loved one is going through. And being, and we've all felt that. I mean, we have all felt unmotivated at some point. And what has helped us when people come with us from a place of empathy and care and love, and maybe not trying to fix it right away and just connecting and understanding, wow, like this is a really tough time for you, and I can see that, and I know that this isn't comfortable, so I'm here to support you in any way you need. And when they're in a place of a better mindset to be able to act, then some of these suggestions can be so helpful. So
Mhm.
I love that, coming from a place of curiosity of what they're experiencing.
Yeah.
Great.
And one more thing, the in field of psychology, uh, the mindset is very, very important, right? So we talked about the mindset a lot too. So if you know, or many of you guys probably read this book too, The Mindset, written by Carol Derrick. If you have chance, please read it. It's really, really inspirational, and then help you having a different mindset to be successful. But the one of the part that in her book, and also the uh, the grit, right? Is another book is almost kind of tied one hand in hand. That she was talking about uh, the one of the researches that they did is over 16,000 adult Americans, that they were saying that what will motivate them to do the certain things, right? So they were saying uh, they thought that is something pleasurable, or giving them some pleasure will motivate them to do the certain things or going beyond. But the research indicated that it wasn't a pleasure, it was more of a purpose, right? So if they have to have this greater purpose, or reminded of they have a greater purpose of what they are doing, that it will actually help them to be more motivated psychologically. So that mindset, I think that's something that maybe will help when we are communicating with one another. So rather, for example, for the children, if they're not motivated, rather than constantly giving carrot sticks, but we can encourage them to see, more of the future, the purpose of why they needed to study, then it will motivate them better. So I just want to tie that the research into that.
Yeah, that makes sense too, of like helping people build that. And we could have gone into this a ton, like helping them develop that intrinsic motivation versus the extrinsic, and like that true sense of purpose.
I wanted to invite the panelists to talk about that, about yourselves. No other questions were coming in, so maybe we'll end with everyone, all the panelists talking about what motivated you to keep on going, to keep on jumping over those hurdles and pushing through those storms of life, through grad school, through post grad training, and to be where you are, where you're at right now. And not that we're not struggling with unmotivatedness in other times. What has helped you along the way, whether just integratively, psychologically, or spiritually? And briefly, maybe share about yourself, and it might be encouraging to our viewers today.
Mm.
I can speak to this, especially, and I know some of you know I'm going through some changes, job wise, and moving on from a previous job, and you know doing some more things with Oak Health Foundation and Oak Health Center, and I think part of that is really stepping into what the Lord has put in front of me, of this, just this great community, and really understanding my worth. And I think it, again, it comes back to that piece of worthiness, and really stepping into that and appreciating where we're at, and and just really embracing that, because it's been hard, grad school, you're constantly going, you know sometimes the work that we do is, it feels like it never ends. And taking a step back and being like, wait a second, what is my, kind of back to the, what is my purpose here? and really stepping into that, I think has increased the motivation a ton to do something that actually makes me feel fulfilled. So I kind of going through that now, and just that's why I think this is awesome that you guys have definitely invited me to do these talks. It's like, oh, I really needed that these past couple of months. So it's been really helpful, and I think that worthiness piece is really key.
Great. Dr. Steve, what has pushed you through? What has maintained your motivatedness?
I kind of relate it to high school. It's kind of like, if you think about high school, like 4 years could seem like a long time, but when you get into it, it goes quick. It's like you just take it 1 year at a time, freshman year, sophomore year, and junior year, senior year. It goes quick. When you're done with it, it's like, wow, that went by so fast. So for me, it was just to keep moving and just to take it one step at a time. And the funny thing is, you just take it 1 year at a time, and it just goes so quickly because it's all natural. It's all like, oh, okay, well, you need 4 years of medical school,
Mm.
and then you need your 4 years of residency, and then it just goes quick. And if you just take it 1 year at a time, one step at a time, and just keep moving, and it's going to go quick.
Look at this mindsets here. How about you, Dr. Mijin?
Um, some of you guys already heard some of my story, but the message that I share with you was a part of my testimony that my younger brother, when he was in high school, he had a surgery and went wrong and medical injury, and he's permanently damaged and become a handicap, and he cannot function as a normal. And then when that incident happened, and literally our family over maybe 10 years or even now are going through a lot of challenges. And then during that time, I remember that literally every day our family were crying because it was really painful and dark, right? We couldn't find the answer. We couldn't find any way to do it. And even through those time, I actually didn't do anything, to be honest. I just cry. And if I have a little bit of strength, then I pray a little bit. But during the time, although I didn't have a strength and a weakness, but only thing that I could do was crying. But the friends and the church community were praying for my family. And another difficulties hit when I came to America, and no one was there when I was going through, again, it's a cognitive distortion probably. It was really hard, financially hard, and it was literally I felt that there's no God. I thought I knew the gospel. I thought I had a covenant, but it was really, really hard. I really couldn't motivate it myself to even get out from the bed. I couldn't even go to the school, so I have to drop out. As international students, if you stop the semester, you will be deported automatically. So you have to maintain the schooling every semester unless it's a medical reason, right? So I was at that point that I couldn't do anything. Again, to be honest with you, I couldn't do anything. I couldn't do anything. But the grace of God and his love and his grace is so great that even though I didn't know during the time of darkness and abandoned and alone, uh, Jesus was there with me. I didn't know that at the time. And also, again, my friends and church friends were praying for me when I even couldn't pray. When I couldn't cook, my friends fed me. I couldn't go to school, my friends visited me. Right? So again, I was unmotivated to do anything. But God put the people, and God himself was there and say, Mijin, I know what you're going through. Again, I didn't hear audible voice and I didn't know at the time. But now when I look back, I know that Jesus was there. And then through all that time, and God planted his desire in me. And that desire became the calling for me. That desire became my hope and vision. And that's how Oak Hill Center and Oak Hill Foundation got formed. Because through that, now I know why I had to go through that. During the time I didn't know, I was unmotivated. But now I know that God had a greater purpose for me to go through that. Now I know the answer. And still some of the questions unanswered. Again, my younger brother is still sick. He's a 40 something years old, but he act like 6 years old. I don't know the answer yet, right? But I know that hope in Christ, that resurrection power that he already accomplished will bring my younger brother's physical um, disabled disabled, what is it, physically disabled or mentally disabled will be completely restored in heaven, that we will celebrate it together. I'm looking forward to that. I may not get the answer on earth that my brother will get better, but hope that I have is complete restoration um, in heaven. So that's my story. But if you want to know more, call me and buy me a coffee, and I will share more of my personal story with you.
Thank you. One question came in during the past few minutes, so I want to honor that question and have the panelists tackle this one. Could motivation have a connection with addiction? Because a lot of times one may be unmotivated to do the right thing, but with the bad, be very motivated to do. Very interesting question. So it's about being very motivated to do something that's considered bad or not productive. Does it have a connection with addiction by any chance?
I think addictions, they're based on reward system. So it's very highly rewarding to do things that are addicting, like gambling, or there's so many addictions, like substance abuse, gambling, like pornography. They all have like a high reward, a high pleasure. So they are very motivating and very addicting. So yes, I think there is a connection there.
Definitely. I think that it's easier to do video games and watch YouTube videos, fun, mindless things, than to hit your textbooks and keep on studying. It may not even be like an addiction level. It could get there because media addiction is real and cyber addiction is real, but it could be a barrier, definitely. Being aware of it, though, is already the first step of fighting against that. So whoever asked this question, it's a very good question. And to keep on being aware and learning those strategies would be a great thing.
I think that's why it's important that what we're having here, Anchor of Hope, we wanted to bring the true awareness, understanding mental health correctly. So like what Dr. Esther and Dr. Steve share, that this unmotivatedness or getting into the other addiction is part of the biological issues too, right? The neurochemical imbalance, and is a pleasure seeking, which means that their dopamine is lower. Right? So they were continuously wanted to seek those pleasure, but like one of the study that I shared during my talk, they said the pleasure will not gonna help you to get out of it. Maybe it will be certain level that we will get it, but the beyond the pleasure that what we humans need is a purpose, the greater meaning. Yes. But if we don't understand this biological and psychological reason why we are continue to or motivated to do more of quote unquote unhealthy things, is because we we are stuck or limited or blind to see that we are made for the greater purpose, that image of God that was in store in us. So we're kind of short way of looking at the current situation. So we're constantly getting into that. So I think understanding biology and psychology will be very important to understand even that behavior.
Okay, great. We need to wrap up for today. Thank you so much for participating. Thank you, Dr. Alyssa, Dr. Nijin, for the seminars. And you can rewatch this or even send it to someone who may be needing a little help regarding their unmotivatedness. And next topic is on April 24th, and it is on the topic of rejection. Very, very common also to many people. And so if you never have an issue of rejection, then you don't have to come to that Zoom meeting. So hope to see you then on Saturday, April 24th at 10:30. And we hope you have a great rest of the weekend.